Hello again, St. Lucia. Welcome to the program, Agriculture on the Move. My name is Philip Sidney, your host. Today we are having what we call a dose ball. No, we're not playing dominoes, but we are discussing two topics, and there's a collision with those two topics. There's a symbiotic significance of those two programs. Tomorrow, I think, is going to be World Water Day. And of course, the day after is going to be International Day of Forests. So you can see why it's a dose ball. And of course, I have with me here today two gentlemen who I will be discussing these programs with. And to my immediate right is Jason Ones, who is the Director of Water Resources Management Agency, and also Dr. Donatien Gustav, who is the Assistant Chief Forest Officer. And of course, both gentlemen are attached to the Ministry of Agriculture. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney.
Thank you,
Which goes before, the chicken or the egg? Forestry, forest or water?
Forest goes first.
Goes first, yes. So, Jonathan, tell us the significance of International Day of Forests.
Without forests, you can imagine there's no living thing on the planet.
Okay.
Because they sustain not only other animals, but they also provide that basic element called water, H2O. In essence, we are celebrating that day not only because we are party of a number of conventions dealing with forests, but in particular because it's important to us in St. Lucia. From 1946, we have our enactment of Forest, Soil and Water Amendment Act, and it deals directly with soil and water conservation. But also, remember, forests also facilitate wildlife, and in St. Lucia, we've moved beyond looking at squatting to ensure we have forests. Today, we're trying to look at livelihoods. So, consistent with livelihoods is that of food. So the theme is forest and food. Food, we cannot have food without water. We cannot have water without that facility of the trees that give the services to provide water.
Great. So moving next, of course, once you have forest, you have water, right? So what's the significance of that day, Ernest?
Yes. Well, every year, March 22nd is observed as World Water Day. And that day is primarily a day for public sensitization and awareness to let persons know about the issues that billions of persons around the world are still facing with clean water and sanitation. But it's also a day to let persons know that the solutions that are out there in trying to mitigate the negative impacts in relation to such. On a global level, each country has the issue with experience issues with water. Whether it be water quality or having a consistent supply of water. So that day is basically just to raise the awareness and to let persons know that they themselves are in a position to act in order to minimize the negative effects of having water for their daily use.
So what are the effects in St. Lucia of the availability of water on a consistent basis?
Yes. Well, in St. Lucia, it's twofold. One is the weather, and the other is infrastructure. In terms of the weather, is right now we're in an era of climate variability. In some cases, extreme climate variability. So without precipitation, rainfall, you have less water in our streams and our rivers. And in St. Lucia, our water supply is primarily surface water. That's where we get our water from. So if that diminishes, we have less water. And the thing about it, in contrast, our demand is always increasing.
Yeah.
So that there is an issue. And also, in terms of looking at from water quality as well, we all reside in a watershed. A lot of people don't realize that, but invariably, you're going to affect the water quality. And that means in order to supply water to the population, we have to move further and further inland because a lot of our development is taking place along the coast. And as you move further inland, your catchment area decreases. So all of this has to be taken into context when we're doing clean water and when we're doing integrated water resources management. And from an infrastructural point of view, is the distribution. There are issues with that, which we know the utility WASCO is working very, I would say they're working very diligently in order to alleviate those issues.
Yes, especially as per today. But going to the forest, as Ernest mentioned, you know, the demand in terms of housing and urban, you know, development can affect the forest. What are you all doing to ensure that you conserve our forests? And I know not all our forest reserves are government-owned property. So how do you manage that?
In the first instance, you must differentiate forest reserve and crown lands.
Correct.
According to the law, we have jurisdiction over both. However, the one where we can prevent someone from entering unlawful entrance, it's in the reserve. I also need to add, relevant to what Mr. Ernest just said, that the total coverage of forests in St. Lucia is roughly 60% vegetative cover. But of that proportion, roughly 20% is forest reserve. So another key challenge going forward is not only to try to acquire private lands, which is roughly 40%, or try to influence these landowners to adopt practices that are consistent with sustainable use. So it's a major challenge going forward. How do we ensure that these persons conserve water, use the land for biodiversity? Ecotourism was a major activity that we once promoted. However, there are other approaches. I can mention them later on because I'm sure you're going to ask something related to conservation.
Yeah, because I think you're going to go straight into it because all of that will have impacted the watersheds and also, like Ernest is saying, waters in the streams and rivers. So what programs do you all have, especially working with the private owners, to ensure that you maintain the ecosystem that you need?
I want to highlight that we have a number of approaches that one fall under recurrent, but also fall under the project environment. In the project environment, we try to use resources to look at rehabilitation of lands. I can mention the Southeast Coast Project, the Ayanola Project, even the Bragvas Project, which is ongoing. However, we also have a recurrent budget where we have about 5 nurseries island-wide. One is central at Union, but we have temporary nurses established in all of the other ranges. And these are used to supply plants, not of just for ecology. I'm referring to not just forestries, but we try to provide, the new approach is to provide plants of socio-economic importance. Forestry is now providing, since 2015, more than 100,000 plants of agroforestry origin. Why? Because private landowners, in particular farmers, in particular persons who want to diversify their land and give their land more value, they are looking at fruit trees to provide that source.
So it's a dual purpose.
So it's dual purpose. It serves not only to have vegetative cover, but that person can tomorrow source fruits for subsistence. The same fruits can be sold. Case in point, fat pork. Nutritious, but I've seen it at the supermarket sold in packets.
But I thought that was almost extinct.
Well, since 2010, Forestry had a program where we produced 10,000 fat pork plants, and they were distributed particularly to areas where it used to be before. But we have a new purpose for fat pork where it's used as a hedge against wildfires. So forestry has been promoting those plants not only for water, but it's multi-pronged. We're looking at alternative uses, livelihoods. We're also looking at conservation of those rare species, the miwis, the apricot, the breadnut. These are activities that have happened in the millet, in Dennery, and it's happening right now in Soufrière. I can mention the Iweco project. This is another project, although I think it's coming to an end, but we have other projects and we are continuing that policy of engaging people where they can see there's a benefit. They wouldn't tie a cow, they wouldn't cut the plant, they would try to conserve and try to ensure that these plants grow.
Well, yes, I'm sure your your agency and Forest, you all work in tandem. Okay.
Yes, you do.
So tell us some of the collaboration that you all have.
Okay, so when it comes to basically looking at environmental issues, the Forestry Department and Agriculture are two key stakeholder agencies that we collaborate with. So we just recently completed a project where we had a reforestation project that was in the Vieux-Fort watershed. So in the upper watershed, in the Grace area, they planted some forest, some tree species in there basically to maintain the soil, and also along the Larry Tret area on the riverbank, planted some vetiver tree planting exercise. So basically to do some form of riverbank stabilization in that regard. We also, when we do investigations, so basically activities taking place upstream, especially upstream of water intakes, the Forestry Department is always part of that investigative team, as well as agriculture, because whatever takes place in that space, invariably it will affect the water resources, and there is so much land to work with that the intakes for water supply really can't go too much further upstream. So we have to control what is taking place there, and what is up there is agricultural activity and also forests. And like Mr. Donatian mentioned, it's either the forest reserve or the private land. So definitely this is key when looking at what's taking place in the environment concerning water resources. Forestry plays a major role in what it is that's happening. And they also have major powers of enforcement that we as an agency don't have, so we have to rely on them for that, right?
So what's the real function of your agency?
Okay, so the key function of the agency is watershed management and protection of the water resources. So we operate as a monitoring agency in terms of what is happening with the water resources, and in identifying what is taking place, looking at it from both water quantity and water quality. We then incorporate our stakeholder agencies in order to mitigate if there are any negative effects taking place. So what we do, we collect the data as it relates to water resources in St. Lucia, and based on that, key decisions are made, because like I mentioned earlier, our water supply is surface water, and this can be easily degraded, right? Compared to if we're looking at groundwater, which may take some time. And in St. Lucia, we don't really have abstraction of groundwater on a commercial basis. So this is what we have, and we need to protect it, and taking into consideration development. So there has to be that kind of balance. So the agency is more or less in that space to ensure while we are developing, but we're also doing it in a manner that it is not detrimental to the water supply for all the sectors: agriculture, health and sanitation, even the environment, also industry. All of those, it's a balancing act. So that's when we speak of integrated water resource management, that's what we talk about. I would put it as basically a compromise. Everybody has to compromise. We can't get all we want. But with whatever it is that we're getting, it has to be satisfactory for us to move forward.
Last year we had a severe drought, right? And then, of course, there was some statement made by the minister.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Yeah, so in May of last year, water-related emergency had to be declared because the rainfall volumes had decreased significantly from February of 2024. For the dry season starts in December and ends in May. In December 2023, January 2024, we had exceptional rainfall. But come February, it decreased significantly by probably less than 20% of the previous months. So with those previous rainfall events, they were able to maintain the base flows in our rivers. So even if we were receiving less rainfall, but with the previous rains, they were able to maintain the base flows in the river. But then it became quite acute in the middle of April to the end of April. We realized that, hey, it's reducing significantly. And also in terms of what was being abstracted for daily use by the population, you realize that it was not balancing out. And the forecast also didn't show that we would have been receiving adequate rainfall. So unfortunately, the minister had no choice but to declare a water-related emergency. Now, surprisingly, Sydney, what I want to tell you, if persons look at now, persons say, well, it's raining, everything is okay. But would you be surprised if I told you that for the first 3 months of last year in the dry season compared to this year, more rain fell last year? Yeah, there was more rain. The accumulated rainfall last year was more than this year. So what it is the distribution of the rainfall. So even if we get satisfactory rainfall in a month, unfortunately, we're not in a position to take advantage of it because most of it just goes back to the sea because our storage capacity is limited. So we want it over a consistent basis. So if you're giving us 100 millimeters, what we're saying is, don't give it to us one time. Give it to us 10, 20, like that, right?
But you have no effect, no control on that.
Exactly. So we have to work with what we have. So that's what it is the distribution of the rainfall. And just looking at the forecast from March to May, it says that we're now going back into a neutral phase. So we're in a La Nina phase. In a La Nina phase, in the dry season, there is a above normal rainfall, but we're going back into a neutral phase. So that's between now and April. The heat index is expected to go up, and because of the climatic conditions in the Atlantic, we're expecting above normal heat. So there may be instances of some dry spells which may come in, but fortunately, I would say, is that the forecast also says by May we should be getting higher than normal rainfall. But still, this is a forecast. We encourage persons to store as much water as possible. And March 22nd being World Water Day, what I want to say, and it's a day for public sensitization and awareness, it's in the middle of our dry season. So this is a day where to let persons know, hey, even if we have a forecast, it may change, but you need to put yourself in a position to store as much water as possible, manage that water so that you always have a consistent supply to undertake your daily activities.
And I think the Ministry of Agriculture was able to answer that cry, because if you realize under the UBEC project, they give out approximately almost 3,000, 1,000 gallon tanks. And that is again for harvesting water. And,
yes.
And you, like you said, you correctly said, once the water is available now, harvest it now so that down the road, at least you can use it.
Yes. Once you have water, that's the key. Just collect the water. A lot of people say, well, when we collect the water in terms of the quality and what have you, most of what we do in life does not require potable water. I'm not saying dirty water, but rainwater is adequate enough to undertake a lot of the activities that we're doing. Potable water, you get it from Wasco. So if you're using non-potable water, which is rainwater, which you can make potable if you want, it's easy, then you can manage your potable water. So in the days where there are disruptions from Wasco, you have enough water from both potable and non-potable to undertake your activities. So when the water returns from Wasco, you do your top-up. And it rains any time of the year. We're in the dry season, and it always rains in our dry season. It's just that from March is more or less the dry months, March and April. But if you start doing rainwater harvesting from December, January, you'll have enough water by the time we're moving into the height of the dry season. Yeah, it's not a new technology, but it is something that, you know, we could make a bit more modern, connect to our houses and use in our toilets, and, you know, to wash our vehicles, to gather the, to water the garden, you know, to pressure wash. All of those things can be done with rainwater. And I think it is key because there are many places in St. Lucia that have a lot of disruptions from the utility. Even whether it's raining or not raining, there are areas that are water stressed. So it's an investment. Climate change is an investment. You know, the government has to invest in it. And likewise, it's not business as usual. We, as I'm talking about residential, have to make the adjustments and the investments, because the key to all of this and to development is water, right? And if we don't have enough stored water, then it would be a cyclical thing that every year we're back to square one. But so persons have to take, you know, the bull by the horn and make the adjustment, which is easy because every year, irrespective of the distribution, at the end of the year, the accumulated rainfall shows that in St. Lucia, rainfall is still satisfactory, right? We still get sufficient amounts of rainfall. It's just that we're not in a position to take advantage of it.
Storage.
In terms of storage when it rains, so we just look at all that water flowing back to the sea. Or I'd say more than 90% of the water flows back to the sea.
Sad.
Yes.
Jonathan, what's on for International Forest Day? What programs do you have?
Well, we're celebrating first to the Most High spiritually. Monday we had a service, WRMA ourselves. We were at Wajuli.
Yeah.
So we had a service and we had a free up at Fordo. Today we have this discussion. Friday we have an official ceremony with the minister and other. WRMA is also going to be there. We're going to show the equipment we use. We're going to engage the public. Some schools are also invited. So at the end of the day, we want persons to be aware that this coming Friday, the schools especially, can come over to Forestry Department at Union and we can have this celebration. Additionally, on the 26th of this month, we're having a staff retreat. People mean everything to us, and we want them to not just work. We want to have some time to reflect, and we want to engage some motivational speaker. We are also partnering with the Ministry of Health so that we can have some health checks done on that day. So 26th of March at Skyrides at 10 a.m.
I've always asked that question because there's also emphasis on the day itself, and you hear a lot is happening on the day, but I'm not hearing anything happening throughout the year. So is that, can I see that's as a fact?
Well, I would say no. I would say we engaged most of the time, especially at the communal level. What is happening is that we don't do a lot of promotion of it. And we're hoping to partner with you and the communications unit and the other media houses so that forests are for life. Persons, we have some new challenges. We have persons going there for other reasons. We're saying welcome one, welcome all. Leave no footprints, have fun, but the legal use of the forest, this is what we're trying to avoid.
Jason, what about you?
Yeah, but we do a number of community events. Actually, this afternoon we have We have a online community event with Wasco's communication team, and we've done about 4 or 5 sessions before. So basically targeting areas in St. Lucia where the residents come on and we speak about the water issues, the climate, the water resources. They ask questions. Sometimes they give blows, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But we have that ongoing, those ongoing activities all the time, especially with the schools. We get invited to the schools. We do that as well. So we partner with a lot, with many agencies. So he mentioned the Southeast Coast Project. Mm-hmm. So we go there and we speak to the farmers as well. So we collaborate with a number of agencies where we go in and we more or less give presentations as to the state of water resources in St. Lucia. And also we do have media houses who come to us. So we just did an article in the St. Lucia Times recently. Also, we have television stations who sometimes want to do interviews with us. So wherever we get the opportunity or we make the opportunity, we go out there and we give presentations, and we also encourage persons to call us, especially when we put out our press releases. We did put out a press release earlier in the year letting persons know about that reminding persons we're in the dry season, and also now we put out a press release related to World Water Day. So all of that is to reinforce what it is, the message we're trying to get out to those persons. Yes.
Well, final words from you, Mr. Donaldson, quickly.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Forestry Department and the Chief Forest Officer, Mr. Alwyn Donnelly. I'm thanking you for the opportunity to celebrate. Not only today, we're hoping it's going to be throughout the year. We have some new plans. We're trying to look at having some more CAP surveys, knowledge, attitude, and perceptions, and to tailor the nature of engagements with communities. Okay. So, thank you.
Yes, so just remind persons that with water-related issues, some of it won't change today for tomorrow. There are stresses in the water sector, but just to remind persons that they're in a position to assist themselves, and as an agency we promote rainwater harvesting. Great. There's always rain falling on your roof, and just imagine that while it's raining, you know that you're collecting water, and that water you will definitely use. You're not just looking at it, not just on a side, as a showcase. Yeah, you will definitely use that water. So this is what, especially right now, to build resilience right in the water sector, this is the way to go because it is immediate.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for being here. Ernest, thank you.
Yeah.
Donaldson,
thank you for inviting me.
And I wish your activities for the next 2 days or the next week will be a success. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. I want to thank you for viewing the program. And remember, agriculture is our business. And eat fresh, St. Lucia's best. And drink a lot of water and harvest your water. Philip Sidney saying goodbye and see you again.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Discipline, that is what we're talking about. Now, if you come to class late and you did not hear the beginning of the class...
Senator Jean.
Madam President, the member is misleading the House by going to a few